and the prosecutorial agencies so that we could synergize and ensure that we are efficient and effective in the fight against corruption. So the MAT is chaired by the Attorney General. It comprises of the EACC, the DCI, KRA, the FRC, that's the Financial Reporting Center, the CBK, and of course, intelligence. We also receive intelligence from the National Intelligence Service, and of course the DPP as the prosecutor. So we work as a team. We meet, we discuss cases. We don't discuss every case. We have a threshold for determining which cases come to the MAT.
Yes.
That is the criteria which cases are admitted to MAT. That is high public officials, involving high public officials, the value, and the public interest that the cases generate. Because of course, Debarl, you know, there are so many cases. We can't take on everything. So what we're trying to do is take on these cases and ensure that they're investigated, the evidence is available, and it is ready for taking to court for prosecution so that it's efficient and effective. So we don't have the challenges where you have that the investigator did not give the evidence to the prosecutor. So that in a nutshell is what we're doing. And alongside that, we have embedded the issue of tracing the proceeds of crime, that is asset recovery. At the onset, before they would investigate only the predicate offense and not deal with the financial aspects. So what we have done is work together alongside the DCI, EACC, that in every case that there is a corruption or an economic crime, there is the tracing, following the money. In simple terms, just following the money.
Following the money.
Yes.
And of course, we shall be looking at that because I think the whole canopy of our discussion is under the theme of asset recovery. So this is why we're primarily also focusing on that. But this is a collaborative effort that, as we know it, looking at Lee, looking at Mudhoni, looking at Bishop, Awarari, Judith, and of course Carrie as well. We see it takes the whole continuum to actually fight and combat corruption. So as you're mentioning, you know, if one side really fails, it scuttles the whole process. So we don't want to really like gum up the system. We want a seamless flowing system. But let's just begin also from the multi-sectoral initiative against corruption, which you are a co-convener, Lee Karuri. And of course, we had a big conference beginning this year, and in a bid to bolster the joint efforts by also Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission and you as well in the fight against corruption, through steering your committee and under your leadership, you also had a consultative meeting with the EACC leadership comprising of a chairperson, Archbishop Eliud Wabukala. Also we had the CEO, that is Twalib Mubarak, and several commissioners on February the 29th at the Commission's office. We want to see what are some of these outcomes that we had from this particular consultative meeting, and what was it all about?
Yeah, okay, thank you. The multi-sector initiative against corruption was founded last year when we came together as the various sectors of the economy and the society and realized that we all have a responsibility to fight corruption. It is not the work of government and the agencies alone, but every citizen and all the sectors need to collaborate, because this fight is for all of us. So the multi-sector initiative against corruption during the month of January this year had convened in partnership with the government the National Anti-Corruption Conference. And during that conference at the Bomas of Kenya, we were able to come up with commitments. The commitments that were made both from the government across all the arms of government and also the various sectors of our society. The private sector, where I come from, and all the other sectors made commitments on what they are going to do. One of the key areas that we found that we need to put effort in collaboration is on the area of asset recovery, in addition to the various other ways of fighting corruption.
Yes.
And during our meetings, we agreed that we'll take a partnership approach, and that's why we had a meeting with the EACC. And during that meeting, the purpose was to track what progress we were making as private sector, and also all the other sectors. And today, as we celebrate and observe the 3rd Africa Union Day against corruption, we are finding it is an opportunity for us to galvanize and marshal our efforts together to fight corruption. And the way of asset recovery, where you follow the money, the way Mudhoni has said, the land that has been stolen, and any assets. and ensure that it comes back to public good is one of the most effective ways of fighting corruption. Because we know that the legal process, in the normal traditional way of fighting corruption, you have to investigate, go to court, and of course get conviction, which must happen. But in the process, it is important that you are able to bring out of the possession of those who have stolen the goods, the assets that they have, back to public. So, and that we believe that it's going to be one of the ways that is going to prevent corruption from happening when people see that the money that you have stolen has been returned, the land you stole has been returned, and so forth. So we are really supporting this effort, and the multi-sector initiative against corruption is collaborating as a partner in terms of identification of possible stolen assets.
Right. Yeah. Let's say from Bishop, because also the church, I think, also is the main cog when it comes to driving this wheel as well, because yes, people have a faith, and of course the conscience, if it's heard, people will continue plundering from the government as well. But we want to hear, because the church has been, I know, and we've been on this show with you before discussing how the church also has been getting accusatory fingers on how it's aiding and abating or corruption when it comes to money laundering as well. And I don't know if now you're actually part of the initiative as well, how the church is helping in trying to combat fighting corruption, as accusatory fingers have been raised towards you as well. So that is a topic we cannot try to avoid, because now we're just getting introductory remarks, but we'll delve deeper into it as well much later.
Thank you so very much, Debarl, and thank you for having us. I represent the Inter-Religious Council of Kenya, which is a coalition of other faiths that includes Muslims, Hindus, SDAs, and etc. And indeed, the church has been affected by corruption. And at one time, during the conference in Bomas, we were asked whether there is corruption in the church, and the answer was yes. And because really corruption, like a cancer, has spread in all sectors and in all parts of this nation. But then the church has the prophetic mandate to speak out, to point out at the ills, and to help accompany this nation as we recover assets, as we work with those people who are corrupt, because they are Kenyans and they are our congregants. We work with them as we restore them, as they have a change of mind and they feel, yes, I've been involved in corruption, but from this day I want to stop. And so we need to work with them. And of course, there are the greater part of this nation that is aggrieved with matters corruption. They feel the Wanjiko. We have to go down to Wanjiko and give hope to her. And so as we commemorate this day, African Union Day of Asset Recovery and Anti-Corruption, I would like to say this forum and this day is a positive day. It's a day we are saying that we are talking about the snake in the house.
Yes.
And we don't want to blame each other, because really if there is a snake in the room, we all join forces to attack the snake, and then we shall ask later who left the door open and why did you do it. And so next time don't do. So we will give instructions thereafter. But at this time and moment, corruption is bringing this nation to a halt, and we have identified it. We are having problem in service delivery. We are having bad governance in all sectors.
Thank you.
And so we'd want to sit and have a dialogue.
Yes.
And we have experts who can help us in getting out of this trap.
Thank you.
So I would say, Debarl, there is hope.
There is hope. There is hope. I like that analogy, and I think also, Judith, you can tell us the analogy of a snake, because it seems we've been fighting the snake. But who left the door open? And I think this is where EACC also has made tremendous emphasis on implementing preventative strategies on fighting corruption, because all we can see is we've been fighting the snake. You know, fighting the snake. It's the outcome of corruption. But you can also take us through the preventative strategies, just briefly, as introductory remarks from you that will lay also the ground for conversation later.
Thank you very much for this invite.
Who left the door open?
I would like to echo what the Bishop has said. It's not a blame game, but yes, we have been fighting this snake. And over and above our investigative mandate, asset recovery, we also have education and prevention. Now, in the prevention mandate, we carry out what we call system reviews. System reviews. In government agencies and institutions. And just recently, we were in Parliament. We go to ministries. We look at their systems, their procurement systems, and any other systems that they use to channel public finance. We identify the loopholes that are there, and we give recommendations on how to seal those loopholes. We do follow-ups to see whether any, whether the sealing has been done, whether the person has closed the door. It takes time in government for some of those recommendations to be implemented, because you know, of course, some involve money, and budget is only read once with supplementaries. But we do appreciate that, yes, some institutions do take actions, and we've gone actually to the counties, we've worked with the counties, we've tried to tell them these are the loopholes, kindly seal these loopholes to avoid pilferage of public finance. Yes.
Right, thank you, thank you. Right, let's hear from Kari as well, because Nyawinda, I think the DCI has been giving us good content. Just look at what is on the front page of the People Daily today, right? This is what is on the front page of the People Daily today, and I'm saying the DCI has been giving us content. It has been action and action. Kinoti, Haji on do or die dams mission in Italy. We've had, you know, the Friday arrests as well. So it has been, you know, such a very melodramatic, you know, incidences we've had when it comes to arresting these people. But now we have them arraigned in court, then later we're being told, oh, you know, the investigations were very sloppy because you didn't do a sufficient jobs in giving a concrete evidence. And as we heard from Modoni, it takes all of you actually to make this process very seamless. But it seems at some point, this process is actually, you know, having some tripping wires from the DCI. But we thank you for the content. At least we've been busy as reporters.
Thank you. From the DCI, generally we have had a different approach.
Yes.
Of investigating cases. Before we would do our investigations, complete the file, then send it to the DPP. But now we have approach of where investigation is guided by the DPP. As soon as we start our investigations, officer from the DPP is attached. In fact, it's brought in to guide the investigations as they go in. And this one kind of has fastened, quickened the investigations. What would take about 6 months, now we are able to do in 2 or 3 months. And that way we get evidence that we believe is sufficient. And once the DPP has looked through the file and is assured that the evidence can stand trial in court, then people are arrested and charged in court.
Okay, but we saw from the conference, what really came from the, of course, the multi-sectoral initiative against corruption conference that was at Bomas, is, you know, different figureheads from, you know, the institutions of pointing accusatory fingers. We had, you know, from the CJ, right? That is from the judiciary pointing fingers at the DPP, saying, no, we cannot, you know, execute these things because the process, the work has been shoddy. And that is what has been happening, especially with all these institutions. Even when we had that state summit, you know, at State House on corruption as well, we saw agencies are raising accusatory fingers against one another. So how is this the whole process, now that you have you on one board, how can you see eye to eye that we have effective, you know, a seamless flowing sort of a process that is not raising accusatory fingers. And we were there with you, Muthoni, I remember.
Yes. Thank you, Debarl. I think one of the things that we need to understand is that these are very complex cases. To mount a case of an economic crime involving some of the projects is a very difficult process. It will require a lot of effort and a lot of new ways of investigating.
Yes.
It's not the usual criminal who has stolen your telephone who you can just take to court, or a person who has murdered and the evidence is clear and the court can go through it. It involves multiple players and multiple documents. It's huge volumes of documents. You look at transactions, you look at documents, and it's very complicated. So the investigator has to work alongside the prosecutor in guiding them as to what evidence will sustain the charges that they want to prefer. To get back to your question as to what has improved from 2016. Yes, I was there in 2016. Things have really improved in terms of the way the institutions are working because of the multi-agency approach. Remember 2016, we were not really properly constituted. We're just beginning the multi-agency. So there was the game, the blame game that was going on with the investigators saying it's the prosecutor saying it's the court, that the judiciary that's failing us. So us under the executive, that's the MAT, which is under the executive, have tried to ensure that we do our bit right from how we can work with them. We work with them as intel. They give us intel. We develop that intel into evidence so that it's evidence that can sustain the charge before a court of law. But we encourage them to come and give us intelligence, tell us where the assets are or where they suspect some mismanagement or theft is occurring. They come to us and we ensure that they are protected. Of course, there is the issue about protection of whistleblowers.
Yes.
And it's a challenge that we are working around because most of these cases, most of these corruption, mega economic crimes involve insiders.
Yes.
You cannot know, Debarl, what has happened in an institution unless you're part of it. So we encourage the whistleblowers, the good citizens, because we believe they're still good citizens, as the Reverend, the Bishop is talking about, to come forward. Like for us in asset recovery, we don't deal with the predicate offense. It's easier for us when you tell us about corruption and economic crime that's happening in a place, because what we will do, we will follow the money. We will not call you, we will not even mention you. When we go to court seeking an order to search accounts for financial intelligence. We are still at intelligence. We do policing work.
We do
and
policing
we just,
work as well.
Yes, we get the police to swear an affidavit, go before a magistrate and get a search and seizure order, which then allows us to look deeper into the transactions, into the documents to see what was happening. Is there money laundering? Where did the money go? Who was the beneficiary? That's the way we go about. So what we have encouraged is a whole of government approach, that government owns the process, not an institution owning it. Yes, the institution finally, we don't interfere with the mandate of the institution, but we ensure that they are able to perform seamlessly and with more efficiency and with more sharing of intelligence and more sharing of documents, and so that you don't have that duplication. So that's what we are aiming to achieve.
Right. Okay, we want to take a short break right now. You've heard there from Muthoni Kimani, Director of Asset Recovery Agency. When we circle back, we will buckle down to now the theme of the day, which is towards a common African position on asset recovery, which the third African Anti-Corruption Day is running under. And we will see how that really pans out, amongst all these agencies as well. That is a big issue that is, of course, affecting this country. And we know this corruption is not just in Kenya. It is a transnational of course, threat to security and other facets of the economy as well. So when we circle back, we continue with the discussion. Please don't go away.
Hebu sikizeni civil servants. If you need a loan, call Mwananchi Credit today. Utapatiwa loan within 6 hours.
Do not get stuck when you can get quick approvals within 6 hours. Mwananchi Credit, investor in people.
Jumia Anniversary Sale is live now. Get a 32-inch smart TV at 13,999 and Huawei Wi-Fi Prime 32GB at only 9,999. Sherekea nasi till the 14th of July. Jumia, the online shop you can trust.
An investment in knowledge pays the best interest.
Ours is an all-round approach to education, focusing on the spiritual, the intellectual, attitudes and skills. Our students are all-rounded.
Hi, welcome to AIU.
For more information on our programs, log on to www.aiu.ac.ke. info@aiu.ac.ke.
We, ninajeri, ndete hizo viatu zangu za nyama.
Hey paps, is how?
We, vijana, nini baya na nyinyi leo? Unataka nini? Na mtu asiniitisha pesa.
Actually, we're planning to use our savings to go to Dubs. You guy, do you still have your passport?
Passport ya kazi gani? Kwenda Dubai unahitaji passport ya nini?
Come on dad. It's Dubs, as in Dubai, not Dubai.
Ninajeri, hebu kuja uone vijana wako wamekuwa na wazimu. Hadi Dubai, na pesa ya nani?
Actually, we've been saving all our pocket money for this. With Bonfire Adventures, you can lipa pole pole. Lipa pole pole with Bonfire Adventures, the down payment only 3,000 Kenya shillings. Go to the Mara, Mombasa with SGR from 13,000. Dubai, Mauritius, Seychelles, Thailand, Egypt, and Zanzibar from 60,000.
I was asked to speak about femicide on my podcast, and I couldn't find an objective way.
How is there no objective way to talk about femicide?
I was saying murder is murder. The murder of women and the murder of men is murder.
Are we denying the fact that things have shifted traditionally where men were the breadwinners?
If you look at all statistics, men are still privileged than women.
A 14-year girl gets pregnant. She will be taught how to become a mother. How about the boy that was responsible? If you are a boy, you cannot become a man if you never saw one.
USIU Africa provides a world-class education that is dually accredited in Kenya and the United States. Apply now for the September 2019 intake and soar to greater heights with USIU Africa. Education to take you places.
Little by little, an engagement.
Well, where?
You only said kwa DM yake.
But of course.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
Pesa ya Kikenya. Dini baraka. Baraka tupu. Baraka
Soil Merchants Property Developers have an incredible offer for prime 1/8 acre plots in all Kalau Township. Welcome to our open day on 13th of July 2019. SMS plot to 21595.
History like this is history that has to be made.
Get paid instantly. Play now. Usibahatishe. Cheza na SportPesa.
Cheza na SportPesa.
Welcome back. You're watching In the Bucket here on AM Live, where we continue with the conversation on the 3rd African Anti-Corruption Day. This is happening, and of course, from 8 o'clock on the nose also, we will have this particular convening at the Hilton Hotel, where they will be observing the 3rd African Anti-Corruption Day. And I'm holding court this morning with different agencies here. We continue with the conversation apace on combating corruption. I have with me Judith Shamala. She's a Senior Attorney, Civil Litigation and Asset Recovery, EACC. Also Modoni Kimani, Director, Asset Recovery Agency. We have Lee Karuri, who's a co-convener of a multi-sectoral initiative against corruption. We have Bishop John Warari, the chair of Inter-Religious Council of Kenya, and also Kari Nyawinda, who is the Deputy Director, Investigations Bureau, that is from the Directorate of Criminal Investigations Headquarters. Let's continue with the conversation. Before we took a short break, we were near also Mudhoni, but we opened the discussion and now gravitate deeper to the theme of the day, which is asset recovery, as it is right now. But we can hark back also from the African Union, which actually came up with this initiative 3 years ago, and this is the third one now that you're holding. And there was an adoption, I should say, of the African Union Convention on Preventing and Combating Corruption in 2003, yes. And its rapid entry also in force in 2006, which gave hope to what we're actually discussing this morning. Just give us a bit of how the African Union is trying to, because as I've mentioned, this is a transnational threat. It is just not only in Kenya, but it takes a whole collaborative effort along the way. If people want to stash away money, you know, from abroad, it will take people also without the borders.
Yes, thank you, Debarl. I think the first thing to look at is to look at the history of the world. Corruption, before it was all right to give is it facilitation? Before in the world when you would find these investors coming in to Africa or to the other developing countries, that would give some money, that was facilitation. But up until 2003, that is the UN Convention Against Corruption, there was no international framework that guided countries in terms of fighting and combating corruption. There were efforts, of course, within domestic laws of each country trying to fight corruption and bribery. Yes. So for us in Africa, it's the AU Convention Against Corruption, which you have given the years and which came into force in 2006. Now, under that initiative, Africa aims to combat corruption so that it's not left behind. And as you know, Africa largely holds the world's last remaining resources, which have been unexploited. Unfortunately, also Africa does not feature very well when you talk about corruption. We've had major corruption cases in Africa, the Abachas, the Ben Alis, the Guptas lately in South Africa, and of course our own local corruption, mega corruption cases which are always reported in newspapers. So it is beholden on Africans to chart their destiny and to ensure that they fight this monster and ensure that development is achieved in Africa, and African children also achieve the services that they require. At the moment, in Africa, alongside fighting this corruption, there is also the initiative of the Mbeki, Mbeki report on illicit financial flows, which was set up to look at what is flowing out of Africa, what is illicit. What has not really been documented is within Africa, the illicit financial flows within inter-Africa, not out of Africa. I haven't seen any document that has done that. Like if I commit a corrupt deed in Kenya, am I able to take my money into Uganda and invest it there? How easily is it for me to invest in Uganda or any of the regional countries with monies which are stolen from Kenya? Those are areas that I don't think, I haven't seen any data. Maybe Judith may have had, but I haven't seen any concrete data that has been done within Africa, because right now we're talking about inter-Africa trade. We need to have a system that is stopping the flow of illicit financial flows within Africa, not just outside Africa. Outside Africa, I can assure you, arising out of what has happened in the West and the US, the minute you try and move money there, it's not easy. It was easy during the olden days of the Abachas, and which I think was a very sad case, and of course the other cases of Africa. But right now, it's not that easy to take money into Europe because of the regulations and the laws that they have and the due diligence. So for us in Africa, typologies we see the issue. Of course, Debarl, you know, nowadays we have to have the beneficial ownership register in Kenya, arising out of the Companies Act and the regulations. We have put that.
Right, we'll come to that, because there's a whole, when you're coming about the vehicles, we're talking about the companies, the trusts, the foundations, fictitious entities, and unincorporated, companies as well. We'll come to that. But let's hear from Judy, because there is a whole issue of access to information as well, which, especially when it comes to the attorneys, there is the attorney and claims of the client privilege, that yes, I cannot reveal, because this is it is a clause, it's attorney-client sort of privilege that we cannot release this information, which really flies in the face of what also act that we have currently with access to information. How then do you try and streamline this, that we have the interface, access to information, and the attorney-client privilege that now is becoming very contentious in a way to actually recover, assets?
For us, Debarl, the truth is, when you look at the Evidence Act, yes, there's that provision of the advocate-client privilege, but again, there is an exception to that rule, because an advocate cannot refuse to release information when a crime is committed. I think it is something that, as a society for lawyers, we need to look at if we have to win this war against corruption, money laundering, illicit financial flows, because to be very sincere, I think lawyers are also used as conduits.
They're used as conduits?
They're used as conduits because all these suspects and the criminals will simply channel most of their money through lawyers. So I think it's a debate that we need to have, and a dialogue that we sit on the table and agree that if lawyers are truly in this fight, then they can agree to some changes. But the discussion is ongoing. If you've been following what has been happening recently with the multi-sectoral agency, the multi-agency team wanting an amendment to POCAMLA to bring in advocates as reporting institutions. Of course, there is the push and pull. I think it's a healthy dialogue if we have to win this war on corruption. Yes.
And of course, we shall also open up on that because of the corporate vehicles that you're saying, they're using even the legal system, some of the lawyers. So we have all these bodies, and they're being used, by these beneficial owners to try and, camouflage their illicit moves when it comes to money laundering as well. But we had Mudhoni mentioning, and I think we can hear from Lee and of course also from Nyawinda, about them also relying on intelligence. They don't have to wait the DCI to actually go the whole gamut in terms of interrogating and investigating. So how does that really pan out? When they get the intelligence, you continue with the investigation. Are there at some point where the investigation from you will clash from the intelligence that now we have from the assets recovery agency?
Generally.
Because from my understanding was, this is the system. It begins with the EACC really coming into it, the DCI as well, then the asset recovery, they're the final people. But she says we don't have to wait for the whole process to end with the DCI. We can come in acting on intelligence.
No, as long as you started a case and it is disclosed some money has been stolen, they always come in from the beginning. So as we investigate, we also provide that information. Generally, as we go and look for the evidence, because ours will do affidavits and get orders to get the evidence that probably is hidden in the banks. We share that information with them so that the money can be preserved for asset recovery. In fact, this is how the multi-agency has really come in. And when it is difficult, we even call people like KRA to see if this person paid taxes. So it is a multi-sectoral approach where every agency centers on the person. We investigate looking for crime. They look for the asset. KRA will come and see if this person has paid taxes for the money. And even a lot of intelligence work goes on. Most of our cases are intelligence-led. A lot of information comes to us, then we turn it to evidence before we prepare these files and take them to the DPP so that they can be filed in court.
All right. Yeah. Maybe in the spirit of multi-agency, now you've been accused that you're collaborating with the media, that we have all these, investigations carried out on media. So they will come and say, I actually saw it on the media. Is it in the spirit of collaboration of the multi-agency that we have the media being roped into this because people are saying, oh, this is all playing out. What is actually the DCI should be doing, should be actually carrying out the investigation, subtly, without the glares of the cameras so that it cannot be interfered with. But we have people actually condemning the media or condemning DCI and the DPP and saying you actually are revealing information. Even the ESCC, you're revealing information about people who should be arraigned in court, or maybe you're going to raid someone's house, you know, for them to be taken to the ESCC for investigation, or for you to take them to court as well. How do you respond to that? Or is it the multi-agency approach that we are talking about, that we have to have a collaborative effort with the media? Maybe we do not really understand.
No, we involve everybody. And as long as this information going to the media is not going to affect our operations, I don't see anything that is wrong with it.
So it's never really affected the operations at all?
No.
And people who are condemning and saying, oh, it should not be on the media, you know, sometimes it subjects these people with their families to the media, and then we have this particular case going down the tubes because there's no conviction at the end of the day, because they say this was a sloppy sort of a job that was done by the DPP or the DCI when it comes to evidence.
In fact, the media has been of quite a lot of assistance. Sometimes we cannot summon people, like a case we are doing now, where there are about 5,000 suspects to be called. We use the media or a Twitter handle to say these people to be reporting on these dates. If it was left with our systems, we would not manage. Yeah.
Okay. Let's get from legal. Yeah. You want to respond to these or to the issue?
Comment on this.
Okay, please.
And some other one or two
other
issues.
Yes.
Yeah. I think the role of the media is very important in terms of the fight against corruption. You cannot fight corruption in private, quietly, subtle, no one knows what you're doing, and eventually see people at the very end. It's important that these issues continue to come. Media are part of our multi-sector initiative against corruption. They have done a very good job. And a continuous exposure of corruption is part of the fight. Yes. What could happen is that possibly, and DCI and DPP, sensitive information, they are guarding. That we know they are guarding. But information that requires to come to the public, and the public to be aware that the fight is going on, is important. I'd also like to add that we're also representing the citizen voice. What the citizens are looking for is information. They want to be aware that something is being done. And we have seen that there's progress. There's progress on the fight against corruption. Where the problem is closure. It's taking too long to close, and therefore there is closure. There's impatience setting in. And what the Kenyan citizens want is, when you start a process of exposure, is to bring the matter to a logical conclusion as soon as possible.
Yes.
So that roadmap, from investigation through the prosecution to a conviction, whichever way the conviction comes, that roadmap is what the citizens want shortened. They want to see outcomes. They want to see people jailed. They want to see assets recovered, because there is the issue that we are talking too much. We are here now speaking, but at the end of the day, what the citizens are asking, what is the outcome of all this effort? So there's good progress, but definite outcomes must come out, and that is what we need to focus in this collaboration, because we are now a collaborated effort, that results must be seen, and that is the only indicator that the fight against corruption is working. So that is a critical results and quick results. And when we were in the Bomas of Kenya, as part of the citizen demands, we asked the Chief Justice that, can you assure us that through this process, and together also with the DPP, DCI, ESCC, they were all there, that you'll be able to have a harmonious a roadmap that ensures that the wheels of justice turn quickly. And in fact, we had requested in that meeting that ongoing cases and those that are under investigation even then, can you be able to conclude them within 90 days? The Chief Justice told us that, okay, 9 days is a bit tight, but we are going to see how we can do it within the shortest time possible. In our own anticipation, we are now 6 months down the line. It's by 6 months from that conference, we need to have seen a lot of turnover in terms of this matter. And that is where we need to focus. Why are we not getting results as quickly as we anticipated as possible? And whatever the bottlenecks are, we need to clear that. In fact, can we dispense with the cases that are at hand as quickly as possible? And that is where the Kenyans are asking questions. What is happening? Is this fight real? So it is real, but the results are not coming out. I would like to add 2 other areas.
Yes.
And each of us has a responsibility. The area of lawyers We know that the banks are subjected to the Financial Reporting Center.
Yes.
And the professionals are part of our multi-sector initiative. Part of our emphasis right now is that our legal fraternity, who are our members, need to be subjected also to be part of the Financial Reporting Center. Because we cannot have, say, we are fighting corruption, but we also have custodians within us. You know, when you say you cannot release information, it is privileged.
Yes, yes, yes.
Then you are a custodian of not or a custodian against the fight. So we would like the lawyers, and we have spoken to them, they are our members, that they need to embrace our petition that we need to amend the law to allow that lawyers, because if you have nothing to hide, you should not fear.
Yes.
You know, you cannot say that you are party to fight corruption, yet when you are told, let's amend the law so that it makes easy, you say no.
Yes.
The commitment to fight means that we make it easy for all of us. And therefore, the lawyers, and we appeal to them, even today, to support the amendment. Because if you have nothing to hide, there's no reason to fear. And that will enable the processes of investigation to be complete, and that you don't have fraud and stolen money hidden within the legal accounts. Lastly, another comment is as professionals and the private sector. The role of the private sector within the fight of fighting corruption is so important, because there are three key sectors of our economy that are actually the drivers. The private sector gives the money, the public sector creates the demand, the political sector provides goodwill. Goodwill. You know, if you have listened today, there are not many politicians coming out fighting and saying we are on board fighting corruption. The majority are quiet. Silence means you are giving goodwill. If you need to come out and speak at the county level, at the national level, and say that I'm part of the fight, we are dissatisfied. Because the president has done a great job leading at the front. But you see the backup, the political backup, there is a big gap. And the political gap, silence means you are giving goodwill. And therefore what we like to do is to remove goodwill, the political goodwill around corruption, fight. And then for private sector, we have accepted and we have met that the private sector has played a big role in contributing towards corruption, creating an industry around corruption. So we have agreed that we have to put our house in order, dismantle corruption, dismantle this industry, and also put systems that prevent also public sector, government, from continuing with corruption. So this is the issues that we are discussing.
3 points that are very key, pivotal points that you've raised. Let's hear from Bishop a bit, because he raises also a good point when it comes to institutions, which now is really gaming the system. And we've had cases that really take long, protracted time. As I've mentioned, melodramatic on the arrests, we have it, and people, you raise our hopes, we know this will actually go full circle. But come, the end of the year, no conviction at all. We have cases which are still lingering in courts even today. Witnesses have died along the way, right? Which now also somewhat really scatters the whole process as well. We want to talk about this. How could we quicken this particular streamlining of combating corruption, and how also with the will the parachurch ministries, the faith-based organization as well, come into play? The critical bit of it is maybe the values. This is where I want you also to come in, because we will not be sitting here if the church really did their job in teaching people the morals, on corruption. I know you're having all these religious persuasions also within the council as well, but they still have one tenet that they are really holding on to, and that is, you have to be a person of a noble character, which is a person who is actually upstanding in the society. He has integrity at the end of the day. Has the church failed?
The church has not failed, Debarl, because, for example, you are in communication, and nation media has been educating and informing people, but you cannot say you have done it and then you close. You're still continuing to inform. We as spiritual leaders, we have to keep on preaching until the nation of Kenya has what is called mindset change. We must keep on speaking against corruption until, and actually we want Kenyans to be angry enough We want them to say no. We want them to expose those people who are in this vice. And the Interreligious Council of Kenya, actually in the month of April 2015, we entered into a memorandum of understanding with the National Anti-Corruption Campaign, a steering committee.
We are headed by David Mbithi.
Yes, we are that serious that we felt we must shout at the mountaintop. But then again, Debarl, those who are affected and they are in corruption and they want to change, we must give them what is called safe spaces. And that is what our religious organizations are doing. We are telling our wayward brothers and sisters, come home. And we are going to shepherd. We are going to walk with you. You are guilty of grabbing some public land. Come and we are going to cushion you, and we're going to ask that the law will take its course, but we will walk with you and tell the powers that be that this person is willing to return the asset stolen. And so, again, we need time, because let me give you another analogy of sickness. For example, if you break down with malaria today, you did not get it right now. It was in your body, and you are going to be given medication, and it's going to take time before it comes out of you. And so corruption is a disease, is a cancer. And somehow we need to sit and agree that we be patient with one another as we reform, as we change. Because Debarl...
But you know, Kenyans have been amazingly patient so far with the church as well.
They are.
Right? You say, just a moment, you say that you will walk with the process.
Yes.
You will walk with the people.
Yes.
To try to change the mindset as well.
Yes.
But every Sunday, we have the pulpits dedicated to politicians who are actually giving money. We know right now we're actually demonetizing the currency, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right? And the church has been picked out as one of the culprits of actually somewhat money laundering, so to speak. And just a moment. Yes. And so the optics we get from the church every Sunday is the fact that the church is actually in bed with the politicians when it comes to actually money laundering. How do you help the Mudhoni here when you say we are actually together, yet the church now is actually a tripping wire in that particular process? She wants to recover the money, but is just being laundered with the church. We've had archbishops here. You come and say, oh yeah, we're fighting this thing, and then next Sunday we see them receiving 800 million shillings from the politicians as well, which is a double speak.
It's a double speak, but let me tell you what, because I've been in the forefront. I was in Bomas with KEPSA and the Multisectoral Forum. I'm a member of the Ufungamano Interreligious Council movement. We made an announcement at Serena with Archbishop Olesipit that churches should remain as holy sanctuaries. And we are not saying the politicians should not come, but we are saying when they come with their money, let there not be fanfare. And they should not use the church as a way of sanitizing whatever they have.
But who is making them use the church? Isn't it you, the leadership of the church?
No, not really, because
maybe they don't have access to the pulpit if you not give them access, isn't it?
Yes, and we've talked to ourselves.
Why do we have preferential treatment for these politicians?
That is a question we are asking, Debarl, and we are telling.
Even the good book says we should not actually, take someone to be higher than, give them a front seat in the church. They should just be like any other member of a church.
Excellent.
But we see them. We want to appreciate. Honorable so and so from we will just give him some little time on the pulpit to come and greet the congregants. It takes a political tone altogether.
But let's give credit where it's due, Debarl. That, for example, I've given an example of Archbishop Olesipit. We were with him in Serena.
It doesn't matter.
And listen,
it doesn't matter, Bishop.
Yes.
Listen, all the support was on this particular forum, I think with you on that particular day, here on AM Live, isn't it? Right? And of course, he really spoke against this. Then we see 2 Sundays after that, politicians and the churches being given a stash of money. So what he's saying this, and then we have that particular reaction. How do we believe you?
You should, because we have made our statement. We have said that the church should remain as a holy sanctuary. And we've told our clergy, we've told them, please don't allow these politicians on the pulpit. And so if a clergy does that, I think there are internal mechanisms of calling him or her and telling them that we are in a fight. And what we are saying is that because the politicians, they are members of our congregations. Yes. And indeed, we'll keep telling them. And that is why I mentioned, let them know there is a safe space. If they want to have a change of mind, if they want to repent and change, let them come and see me. And we will pray for them. And we will help them come out of this vice. And so, Debarl, it is true the church has been accused of encouraging some of this, but I want to believe there are greater part of the church that is saying no to corruption. And I'm telling you, like 2015, we had a memorandum of understanding with NACC. And we, in fact, Evangelical Alliance of Kenya, they also have a memorandum of understanding with EACC. And really, this is a battle, and it's affecting even the media fraternity, is affecting all the sectors. It's a disease. But we are saying, Kenyans, let's get tired of this, angry enough, and say no. And we are going to heal.
All right, listen to what Stanley Hiram is saying. Stanley Hiram Mugo is saying, thought the churches pray for the dead, sick, criminals, the offerings it is. Why can't they pray to end corruption? We've not even had a national prayer, called, where we have all these interreligious ministers coming together to actually bring this particular issue and pray. We have also, this is what Kenyans are feeling. They're asking, what hope? False one? Yes. As is in Kenya, just leave, wait to die and be buried. Don't be bothered with anything. Consider everything non-issue. This is from some of the people that are actually expressing frustrations. But you say there is still hope. And of course, having conversation is still there's still hope. And of course, Bishop, you are the face of a church now. We have to speak. I'm not saying that it is your church, but you're speaking.
I hear you.
Yes.
I hear you.
But let's hear from Judith. We want to also broaden the discussion right now on the issue of witness. Yes. There are so many willing Kenyans who they know my neighbor is corrupt. He's actually just living next door to me, but I've never seen him. Ulterior motives happening or ulterior things happening within particular, we cannot really tell what he does, but they fear to come and report to the EACC. They fear to come and report to, the recovery agency as well. In light of the Witness Protection Act, I believe it's an act right now?
Yes.
Yes?
It is.
How has it streamlined this, that I'm protected? And how can I be assured that if I actually reveal corrupt issues also within the company that I am in, maybe I'm in the procurement office and I'm being bulldozed from the upper reaches of, the company, the board, the CEO, they're involved. I'm just a junior officer. How will I be protected? How will I protect my job?
First and foremost, Debarl, before we even get to the witness part,
yes,
where there's a live case, I think people should feel secure in reporting corruption in the sense that we do not disclose. We have anonymous ways of reporting corruption, both for EACC and even ARA. You report and nobody discloses who has reported that corruption. So we pick it up as intel and we run with it. In respect to the witnesses, we have the Witness Protection Act. Yes, we agree there are some challenges because it involves a lot of money, as Modoni will confirm. Just to secure one person involves a lot of money. So what they have done, and I think Modoni is better placed to even respond to that question, is they look at a case-to-case basis. And different factors and circumstances will come into play for you to be considered to be a protected witness. But I think Modoni can shed more light because it falls more
within her remit.
general.
Yes, okay, thank you. Modoni, you want to pick up?
Thank you, Debarl. I think the first thing that I would like to share with Kenyans is that really, in terms of witness protection, we do have a witness protection unit, but it doesn't have all the resources. The challenge is not so much in the witnesses, Debarl, if I had your question. It's more with the whistleblower.
With the whistleblower?
Yes, the whistleblower.
The whistleblower.
We do not have a legal framework for the whistleblower because we have the bill which is pending. But if you Google, almost all companies have a whistleblower policy and procedures, and yet the whistleblowers are the ones who actually then get all the battering and the retaliation. We can see the challenges that you have with Munyenke and the likes, you know, and many others who are ongoing, who I have in my radar, and I feel very, very sad when I see a whistleblower who is a true Kenyan revealing to us what's going on and should not be going on in an institution, and then we see that whistleblower being then given either that whistleblower is either sacked or he's transferred, or anything can happen to that whistleblower. So there is need for this country to really establish a very safe mechanism, and a mechanism that's really confidential, that whistleblower is never known and does not get the retaliation from the bosses. We ourselves as the agency, if we see anything, we like the newspapers because it's a source of intel for us, and we also get a lot, even through phones, through what people tell us a lot of things. Some of it is not really valid, but we don't dismiss. We look at it and then analyze it and see whether it has substance, whether they are real assets which we can trace, or whether it's just imagination. So we are working as the multi-agency team to looking into ways of, even without the legal framework, ways of seeing in very selected cases, where can we, or what can we do to ensure a whistleblower is not exposed and is never known by the suspects, because the suspects are the ones who can cause harm. It's still in the nascent stages, so we can't reveal what we're trying to do, but I'm sure we'll come up with something that will support even the whistleblowers even if we don't get the legislation. You know, the legislation, we wait for Parliament to pass it, so it's not under our control, but we will be able to take that bill as AG's office forward to ensure that it's passed, and then have a framework for where we have the safe places for these whistleblowers to be kept. But I would also like to just comment on the balance that Karuri is talking about, the balance between the role of the media and the balance between confidentiality of the investigation.
Yes.
That's a balance that we need to get right, because sometimes we reveal too much, like 300 questions are going to be asked. I think that's going a little bit too far.
Yeah, so we really overplay our hands.
Yes, I think, and what we are trying to do is have a session with you, members of the media, to see how we can work a system of support without prejudicing any investigation. I think that's the plan that we have at the MAT agencies, to bring you together on a morning breakfast where we can agree this is what we can share with you to keep the citizens informed, and this is what we keep to ourselves. You shouldn't, if you know it, give it to us confidentially. Don't put it in newspapers, because then it prejudices us. And I agree with the citizens. They are right. They should be. It's their right. Their impatience. I can understand the impatience that is hanging around the issue of the cases that we have. We had NYS 1, it's on appeal. We have NYS 2, you know, it's ongoing. Yes, I can understand the frustration of the citizen, the expectation. Maybe the expectation was too high. The intrigue of how the prosecution takes place is something that the citizens have not understood. There are multiple defense counsel. There are multiple legal questions being asked into this. So the trial cannot take place in the 90 days. Unfortunately, Bwana Karori, we are trying to see. There are documents to be produced. So it's a whole long process. And this is the adversarial system we have. It's not the civil system where the judge goes out to investigate you, and it is you to come now and disprove that you're not guilty. So our system, the common law, that's just what it is. What we are trying to do is to work with the Chief Justice and the judiciary and then CAJ to see if we can limit the time for cases. But still, that will depend on each case.
Case-to-case basis.
Case-to-case basis. So really, that's what we're working on, and we hope as a country, because everybody has the goodwill. I wouldn't say that we were at the same place we were in 2015 or 2016. We are different because we see it together. We see it as a national problem, which we need to address in each person's role. What can I do to ensure that we achieve the result? Even if somebody is going to be acquitted, it's okay. They've gone through the due process. The rule of law has been followed. If somebody gets a conviction, then we get it. But in terms of assets, recovering assets, it's also a long process. It's not the way the citizens say, oh, okay, we have this. If you look at today's newspaper on the tokens, billions, then you expect we're going to recover those billions. No, we have to look at who are the suspects, who could have benefited, then where could these assets be hidden? Bank statements give us intelligence. They don't give us where the real assets are. It's very unlikely, Debarl, that you'll find that huge amount stashed in a bank account. No, it doesn't happen. But to close, I would also like to say that maybe to Bishop, that it's high time, I agree with what they're doing, but it's high time the religious sector looked at their sector and seeing, I know there is resistance to some regulation, but I believe that in terms of money laundering in particular, there is a way we can sit together and see how can they flag out money laundering and report that to us. I believe that we are not going to ask them other things. We just want to see an institution that is holy and religious should not be used for criminal activity. I think that's the area that when we tried, I know there was the proposal to regulate them. But that was a different agenda. Our agenda is like what the Pope is doing in terms of the Catholic Church, in terms of looking to see that the church is not used for money laundering. And this is something that I think we all cannot avoid, because if criminals see an institution that can be used, they will use it even using the Bible or the other holy instruments.
Yes, using the Bible in the pretext of the Bible. Right. Let's come to Nyawina on this as well, because I think we're discussing also about the whistleblowers. Maybe they're coming to you also, they're giving you information as well. And we have Bodoni also saying sometimes maybe we overplay our hands because you reveal too much maybe to the media as well. That sometimes can be a bit prejudicial to the investigations as well, and even the court cases maybe, because there's so much. And we've had some of the judges saying no, the media will be locked out on this. Yeah, how come this came out? We know about the sub judice rule as well. You can tell us, do you reveal so much? And maybe also in addition to that, there is also the case where we have the office of a DPP, and people are saying that some of the prosecutors cannot really match the lawyers that we have in the courts as well, right? That some of them maybe they should be getting some legal scholarship. At least we have lawyers pitting against lawyers. So that has been the case. You have very consummate lawyers, and we have very maybe inexperienced prosecutors who come up and then they're really quashed by these lawyers. That has been a very lopsided sort of, could we say, a battleground in the courts. You can actually talk on that. I know you're not from the DPP, yes, but I know you in that particular spectrum. We don't have anyone from the DPP, but you can actually even, just shed light on it as well.
Probably I may comment that crime is quite dynamic.
Yes.
And crime changes so fast compared to the laws that we have. And it requires a lot of training to get at par with the crimes that are happening now. At the DCI, there's been a lot of training and a lot of support in training our officers. Like in cybercrime, almost every crime today is a cybercrime case. But we find, I'll not really say in the DPP, and even in the courts, you take some of the cases, you really need to explain. So training is required across the justice system, not just at the at the DCI or the EACC. You understand your case, but when you take it to the next level, someone really doesn't get. Like the cases that we have done, like Kenya Power, without the cybercrime, we will not crack them. But I believe it's important that training is done across the board. as much as we are doing our cases and taking people to court, these criminals, as long as they can keep their loot, and crime appears profitable, and the population appears to really see them as successful. I think that is something that Kenya as a population, as a society, needs to work on. Because when somebody has money, we don't ask, where did you get it? You are in a profession with your colleague, suddenly has made so much money. You don't ask, how did he manage to get so much money? And sometimes because
from the
of
betting. Yeah, you'll tell you, oh, I got it from the lottery. As the countries want to right now, you bent to lottery, huh?
No, but if you ask questions, it will be pointing to something. And again, instead of vilifying or even showing that this man was not got in a clean way, we make them our next politicians and leaders.
Right.
Even in the village, I may be very senior where I work.
Okay.
But when I go to the village, if I don't have the money to give around, a very junior officer who works, say, in a sector where he has access to corrupt money, when you reach there, you'll be told, yeah, give the seat to this is the big man. So I think Kenya, we need to change
Our
something.
mindset.
Yeah.
We need to change our mindset. Judith, by now ESCC has integrity clubs, and you still want to instill, of course, paradigm shifts, right, from formative ages in school. Integrity clubs, this is what he's saying. We need to change our mindset. Our paradigm shift has to be there. Tell us more about this particular initiative also from ESCC.
Debarl, I think it's very important that you have actually picked that point, because right where we are right now as a society, it's a question of having a drastic mind change. You don't speak to people who are grown. You first start with the ones who are little. We have books. Through those integrity clubs, we publish books through the education department, books that are disseminated to public schools, private schools. We speak to them. We send people out there.
Yes.
Very simple stories like Jane stole Tom's sweater and takes it home. Does the mom ask? No. Tomorrow it will be a shoe. Then it is a habit that builds on, simple as it looks. And with time, this person graduates into the system, comes and finds that corruption is so deep-rooted. For you to get a passport at Nyayo House, kitu kidogo must be given.
Yes.
When the police stop you, this is the same child 20, 30 years ago who took a sweater, but nobody bothered to correct. That is what we are using the integrity clubs for. Try and instill values at that very basic level. Just like in Germany, there's something they call, I am my own policeman. Who are you? Your own conscience. Does it touch you? Does it touch you that I have actually picked something that is not mine? Is it right that I'll give a policeman money when I'm stopped, when I know I am wrong? Can't I pay the fine and move on? I don't know. But I also wanted to add, so that we don't lose what Mudhoni was talking about, asset recovery. The whole process. I think Kenyans should know, we try to make it simple for them to understand the whole process of recovering of assets at page 36 of the Daily Nation. And it is what Mudhoni was saying. By the time you collect the intel, gather the evidence, they need to understand that not all people hide that money here. It is stashed abroad. By the time Mudhoni's investigators and our investigators get in touch in New York to find out, has this money hit this account?
Yes.
What are the formal channels to follow that money, to stop it? Mudhoni has to start now looking for people. How can we have a freezing order in that account? By the time that report comes back, some time has lapsed.
Yes, and yeah, I think you can speak to that, Mudhoni, because last year also the government signed the LMA with United Kingdom, Switzerland, Jersey to recover and return to Kenya stolen assets hidden abroad. We thank you also for your salutary effort. I know 3 billion shillings, 3 billion shillings actually was recovered from the National Youth Service, Youth Fund and the Kenya Revenue Authority scams in the last 2 years. But this money that is stashed away is what now Judith is really talking about. And this is where also this theme that is predicated on a big thing, because we have also challenges. And we have Nelson Rockefeller saying the secret to success is to own nothing, but control everything. And there are people in this country who actually, they own nothing, but are controlling everything, right? So you tell us, and this is, we're talking about the elusive beneficial owner I was talking about, where we have people who, they have no companies, yeah, but they have proxies. And this, they use these categories of companies, trusts, foundations, where Bishop is also right now, and also fictitious entities and unincorporated companies as well. Just briefly on this, you can tell us briefly on how that is a big challenge as well, even as we prepare our headlines thoughts as well.
Yes, thank you, Debarl. First, let me begin with the FRAC. That's the framework for return of assets from corruption and crime in Kenya. This is the MOU that Kenya has signed with UK, Switzerland, and Jersey.
Yes.
This is aimed at making a framework at making it more easier to return any assets which are held in those jurisdictions which were gained from corruption or crime in Kenya. And it's aimed at fast tracking, because as you heard from Judith, the process is really long. When you get MLAs, mutual legal assistance, when you have to go to the law enforcement and then get them to freeze those accounts, it will make it easier for us to just tell the law enforcement to tell us, we are investigating Muthoni Kimani. She's a high public official. She has an account here in Jersey. It is holding 500,000 pounds. We would like you to freeze it for us. So it makes it much easier, because otherwise if they don't cooperate, then the money will move to another jurisdiction, which is not favorable to us. So that's the kind of arrangement that we have. And in that arrangement, it has provision for how those assets, when they are returned, will be used in Kenya. Of course, we have the Proceeds of Crime and Anti-Money Laundering Act, which has the Criminal Asset Fund. But in this framework, we have agreed to have a committee, a steering committee, which will be in charge of guiding how the assets will be utilized because for the public good. This is in line, of course, with the UN resolution about asset recovery and returning them back to the country for development and for growth of the nations. So that steering committee is supposed to meet and join us and agree on our national agenda. We choose a project together with them, and it's implemented with their guidance, of course, following the whole procedures of our laws. It's not going to go against our laws. So it's, in simple terms, that's what it's aimed at doing. And it's the first of these cases is the implementation of the Gichuru Jersey funds. That's the project that we are looking into, how it's going to be implemented and achieved in record time, and it's going to be replicated probably for other African countries. It's actually something people are looking at. With regard to the other question of the beneficial ownership, you own nothing but control everything.
Control everything.
The mafia style.
The mafia style, yes.
Yes. That's something that the world has looked at, and arising out of that London conference on anti-corruption, there's agreement that there should be beneficial ownership registers open to the public, so that if Muthoni is holding a trust company, or is holding a company on behalf of another person, there should be a register disclosing who ultimately controls this company, who ultimately gets a check. That's what you're asking for.
Yes.
So when you're forming companies, as we signed up in the London anti-corruption communique, as Kenya, we took part, and we agreed that we were going to develop the beneficial ownership register. So we have the regulations, and we should be having a proper way of keeping that record. The challenge comes in when you have, it's a very complicated process. It's okay if it is just one company, a subsidiary owned by another subsidiary in another jurisdiction. In the Panama story, Mossack Fonseca, it's very complicated, but the world is working around that because of recognizing, in particular, these ones is not so much the corruption, it's so much as the tax evasion. I think tax evasion is a major challenge, the price shifting and all that stuff that goes on, and the countries that are losing. So the world together, all countries are victims now. So they're working together towards ensuring that we find a way of dealing with these shadowy and shell companies that drain countries of their revenues, whether it is in taxes, whether it's in corruption proceeds of crime. I think that's what we're working on, and we should be able to see our beneficial register. For us now, we are almost compliant.
Thank you.
So when you get the review, we'll be okay.
Right. I think we could have discussed more and more and more on this, but of course, because of interest of time, and I know you have to head over also to Hilton because of this particular conference as well. We want to thank you so much. But let's hear finally also your closing remarks. We begin with you, Lika Karuri. Just tell us, yes, moving forward, we've had so many conferences, so many talk shops. Are we going to see any exceedingly beneficial value from actually all these talk shops and conferences? Yeah,
that is true. You know, there has been a lot of discussions and conferences, and that is important to prepare and get roadmaps, and also to have to be in one accord. You know, the conferences have helped us to come together to collaborate. Now, what is required is results. And I would say that as we look at the multifaceted approach and the multi-sector initiative against corruption being a partner, the theme for today, which is asset recovery, is one of the areas that can have the highest impact. In fact, we would like to see the whole concept of lifestyle audit, asset recovery, become one of the biggest pillars of fighting corruption. If we can take this one, lifestyle audit, and do a good job, all of us. By the way, Kenyans are very good, they can do very good lifestyle audit. Kenyans, they know what is happening. But put together a system that is watertight and have resources and upscale the work that Muthoni is doing.
Thank you.
And make it big.
Thank you.
And all of us participate. We are going to get impact.
Thank you. Bishop, also your closing remarks?
Yeah.
Thank you, Lika.
One, I want to thank
very briefly.
You because of giving us this forum, and to say that Interreligious Council of Kenya, by the way, I should correct it, I'm not the chairman. I'm representing the chairman.
Oh, you're representing the chair.
That's important.
All right, thank you.
That we came together 2018 and we formed a framework with what we call dialogue reference conference, reference group. And now we have gone to the counties, and what we are doing, among the many things that we are working on, is a decision to deal with corruption. And corruption can be dealt with. All we have to do is to be bold and to collaborate with such agents. I'm a member of also a multi-sectoral forum, and media is, all of us we have this disease, we can bring it to an end, but it will be not overnight. We ask Kenyans also to be patient.
Thank you.
With all the agents, and this year I know is a journey, and we are going to get there.
Thank you. All right, let's hear from also Nyawinda. Briefly, your closing remarks.
I can say one of the theories that explains crime, called rational choice theory, says that human beings are a rational being. So if you will compare cost and benefit, profit and losses, so as long as there are profits, there are gains in committing crime, you will decide to commit crime. So asset recovery should come in to make sure that you don't make profit from committing crime.
Thank you. Right, thank you. Oh, finally, let's hear also from Judith Shamala, your closing remarks, briefly.
Mine is to urge Kenyans, for us to realize the taking away of benefits and making asset recovery big. We all must come together. We need, like the multi-sectoral agency, the colleagues have said, we need Kenyans to come on board. They're the best people who can audit lifestyle out there and come and tell us where this money is, where these assets are hidden. That neighbor who has all this actually has nothing but controls everything. They are the best people who can come to Muthoni and myself, and I think we can fight corruption that way.
Right, thank you very much. We really appreciate your participation this morning. Judith Shamala, Senior Attorney, Civil Litigation and Asset Recovery from the EACC, Muthoni Kimani, Director, Asset Recovery Agency, Lika Karuri, who's a co-convener of Multi-Sectoral Initiative Anti-Corruption, of course, fighting against anti-corruption. Also, we have Bishop John Warari, Interreligious Council of Kenya member. Also, we have Kari Nyawinda, Deputy Director, Investigations Bureau, this year. We thank you so much, and of course we're looking forward to also seeing this developing story which will be happening at the Hilton. This is the third anti-corruption or African Anti-Corruption Day that is happening at the Hilton this morning from 8 a.m. and it's running under the theme towards a common African position on asset recovery. Finally, I'm being chased out from studio by my director. We have John Gidanga, I should say, is a good friend of AM Live. Corruption. It's indeed very sad that the church generally has chosen to be silent about corruption in this country. This means that many church leaders are also insidiously involved in this vice, hence the long deafening silence. We have Oduho saying corruption is a crime against humanity. It's a violation of human rights. It should be punishable by life imprisonment and not to give a safe space to return stolen properties, as the Inter-Religious Council suggests. Such an initiative is futile. Amongst many, I can't read them because of interest of time. And thank you very much for your valued company. Thank you to our guests again for also what we've not discussed is about demonetization and also how the asset recovery is actually, keeping its eyes peeled on this as well. How do we know these monies are coming back and who is bringing back the money? Thank you very much. Right, we could go on.